Good evening, everybody. I'm Stephen Chard, the clerk to today's Joint Public Protection Committee. On behalf of the members, I'd like to welcome you all. Before we start, I will explain, for the benefit of members of the public who may be watching, that tonight's meeting is being held over Teams and with councillors present here in the council chamber, Timer Square, Bracknell. The meeting is being live streamed on YouTube, so members of the public are able to follow proceedings. The committee members in attendance are councillors Iskander Jeffries, Sharice Welch and Nick Allen from Bracknell Forest Council, councillors Ian Cottingham and Jeremy Cottam from West Berkshire Council, and Councillor Howard Wollaston is due to join us as well from West Berkshire. We're also expecting to be joined by Councillor Jordan Montgomery from Woking Borough Council, who's attending the meeting as a guest. Subject to his attendance, we will need to suspend standing orders if he wishes to speak. Members are being supported by a number of officers from the two partner authorities, including from the Public Protection Partnership, and Narinda Brar from Woking is also in attendance as a guest. Officers are here in person or attending remotely. For any votes, members of the committee in the council chamber are the only ones who could take part in the formal vote, and they will do so by raising their physical hand. So please can I ask everyone present in the meeting area to make sure they switch on their microphones when invited to speak directly into them, and then to switch them off when you finish speaking. Being the first meeting of the municipal year, we are starting this meeting with the election of the chairman for 24-25. Are there any nominations for chairman?
I would like to nominate Councillor Jeffries as chair.
Thank you. Councillor Cottingham, does that find a seconder?
I'd like to second that. Thank you, Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Councillor App. Are there any other nominations? In which case, I'll ask members to vote for that proposal by a show of hands. All those in favour? Yeah, that's carried. And therefore declare that Councillor Iskander Jeffries is our chairman for the 24-25 municipal year.
Thank you, Stephen. Have we had any apologies?
We have, Chairman, yes, from Councillor Lee Dillon. Councillor Ian Cottingham is substituting for him.
Thank you, and I'd like to thank my fellow members. The next item on the agenda is to elect a vice chair for the Joint Public Protection Committee for the 2024-2025 municipal year. Are there any nominations for vice chair? And from the chair, I would like to propose, in his absence, Councillor Lee Dillon.
And does that receive a second?
Yes.
Councillor Cottam?
I would like to propose, in his absence, Councillor Lee Dillon as our Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Cottam.
Are there any other nominations? No, then I'd like to ask the members in the room to vote by raising their hands.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that, Chairman. And that's just to confirm that Councillor Lee Dillon is elected Vice Chairman for the 24-25 municipal year. Before I hand back to you, Chairman, there's one more item of business that I referred to earlier. We're expecting, as I said, Councillor Montgomery to join us from Woking Borough Council. He isn't with us yet, but in the expectation that he will be, and he's been...
I've just arrived.
Oh, thank you for that. Thank you for confirming that. So, in which case, to allow Councillor Montgomery to speak, we need to suspend standing orders. Would anyone be willing to propose that we do so?
Yeah, as the chair, I'd like to propose.
Okay, Councillor Jeffries, thank you, and Councillor Wollaston, seconded. So, in that case, that's suspend standing orders for the duration of this meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, members. Agenda item number 4 is the minutes of the previous minutes of the previous meeting. Sorry, got tongue-tied there. Need some water. Are the members willing to accept the previous minutes as an accurate record of the meeting held on the 11th of March 2024? I would like to propose the minutes from the clerk and ask for a seconder.
Seconded, Chair. Councillor Allen.
Thank you. Please can members vote by raising their hand. If they agree to the minutes, they will be signed as a true and accurate record of the previous meeting.
Thank you. That proves the minutes from last time. Thank you very much.
And I will sign the minutes. Agenda item number 5, outstanding actions from previous meetings, and I'd like to defer to Sean Murphy to provide an update on any outstanding items.
Chairman, I will have to, unfortunately, I'll have to circulate an update on item 1 because I've not picked this one up with Claire or with Councillor Dillon. And I'll chase up on where we've got to with the officer letter. Just on item 2, basically you can see in column 4 of that, the update that those matters have been actioned in relation to item 3, which was a breakdown of the activities that are provided within the shared service arrangement for the relevant partners, has now been included at Appendix C of the annual report. And obviously in item 4 basically is one that will be actioned when we come to the next item brought to the committee on vaping and just generally around failure rates of test purchasing.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Moving on to item number 6, declarations of interest. I'd like to ask the clerk if we have received any declarations of interest.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, we have in advance of the meeting. So we've been notified from Councillor Ian Cossington to my left that he has a personal interest in agenda items 10 and 11. This is by virtue of the fact he is a non-executive director of the Trading Standards Institute and ITSA Limited. He's also the chairman of Fatcham Town Cricket Club, which is a licensed premises. As his interest is personal and not prejudicial, he is permitted to take part in the debate and vote on these items.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 7, public questions. I note that there are no public questions have been received, which relates to either a general issue concerning with the work of the PPP or an item on the agenda. Moving on to item number 8, forward plan, and I'd like to ask Moira Fraser to introduce this item.
Good evening, Chairman. Sorry, just to say, the forward plan is as it is. The only thing is that we did describe that the annual vaping report would be coming to the March 2025 meeting, and it's not currently on there, so we'll make sure it's added. And then if anything else comes up in discussion this evening, we can add it to the forward plan as well, unless members have something that they'd like to add now.
Thank you. I'd like to ask members in the room, is there anything else they'd like to add? Oh, thank you. Moving on to item number 9, terms of reference. And again, I'd like to go back to Moira Fraser to introduce a report.
So, Chairman, this is something that we would always include on the first meeting of the municipal year. It's the existing terms of reference so that members understand the rules of engagement for the meeting. Last year we had some substantial changes in that we updated the membership of the meeting to have a member of the opposition from each of the authorities join the panel. There are no further proposals to change anything for this coming year.
I'd like to ask the members in the room if anyone would like to speak to the item. No, and as the item was information purposes, there will be no need to vote on the item. Moving on to agenda item number 10, Public Protection Partnership Service Update on Q4 outrun for 2023 into 2024. And I'd like to go to Sean Murphy to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chairman. With your permission, I may bring in colleagues just to clarify any points that are raised in this discussion. Thank you. So it's a fairly lengthy report, but effectively what this report does is to identify, firstly, an update for the service since the committee last met in March of this year. So you'll be familiar, those people that have been on the committee for some time will be familiar that we bring one of these reports every quarter, and effectively it builds on the last report and gives that update. The second part of this is that Appendix A to the report is the performance data for the service, and some narrative in that performance data as to the work that the service has conducted over the last financial year. So the committee is charged with oversight of the service from the point of view of both policy but also performance. And it's also responsible from the point of view of finance and oversight of finance. So just running through some of the highlights, if I may. So picking off, starting with finance, at part 5, we are still running a significant deficit, I should say, in relation to income. The shortfall was just shy of £100,000 last year. And obviously that had to be managed within the year by holding vacancies and things, and including vacancies within the licensing service. We did end up at the end of the year with an underspend of 61.6 thousand, and that was made up primarily of, I think 38,000 of that came as a result of a grant that was received, I think on the 27th or 28th of March, right at the end of the financial year, effectively the last day of the financial year, given that Easter was there. And that grant was for the enforcement of the provisions relating to the sale of offensive weapons, knives. So what is being proposed here is that underspend is carried forward into this financial year, and we have had that discussion with Bracknell and West Berkshire prior to this meeting. Moving on to further into the report, customer satisfaction. There has been a dip, I think it's fair to say, in the customer satisfaction rates, although the problem that we've got is that the sample size is very low, and in fact we had one quarter when in fact actually we had no returns at all. I think that's correct, isn't it, Warren, that we had no returns in one? Yeah. So that makes it very challenging. We did make a big effort at the end of the year, basically to phone people up and try and get data, but we are going to have to look at have a look at how we collect that data in a more substantive way, basically to give us a figure. That said, obviously it's disappointing that there has been this dip, and I think part of that is to do with the fact that we've had an awful lot of vacancies, and we've lost some staff from the community team, and they are the team that deal with a lot of the calls that come in to the service, particularly those ones that relate to residential matters. So just moving on further into that section, as you can see, basically we're still carrying a high level of FOIs at 371 for the service this year, so that was an increase. But what probably is noticeable is the significant increase in the number of member inquiries and MP inquiries, which for myself, my view is that that's a good thing. Basically, that we're getting the message out about what the service does and what it can do. But we are seeing a steady increase, and in fact, since this report was written, there's certainly no sign of that increase abating. I suspect it's probably has increased significantly further since the report was drafted in the first part of this year as well. Just moving on to human resources, this has been a real success. So we've struggled for a while to recruit in one or two teams, particularly in the area of licensing. I'm now pleased to say that with subject to one person starting, I think later this month or next month, that team will be fully staffed now, both the application side and the enforcement side. And we've been able to recruit some really a good range of experienced officers with either sort of policing backgrounds, or in fact actually one of the people who has been successful into the team as a licensing officer was one of our own trainees, who subsequently went on to do training animal welfare enforcement and basically successfully being appointed to the team. So that's a real success story based on where we are with staffing. The 7.4, I did allude to the fact that 2 of our 4 level 4 apprentices have successfully completed their endpoint assessment. In fact, that's now 3 since the report was written, and it would soon be 4. So we're hoping to have a full house of 4 out of 4 have completed that part of their training. As I say, 1 has moved into licensing, 1 of them is moving into the area of food safety and going on to do further qualification work. And we're looking at supporting the other 2 trainees into other areas in due course. Bit of stuff in there about post-entry training. I'll move on to ICT update. Damien and I have certainly 2 meetings since the last meeting of this committee, and I think actually we're pleased to say we have been assigned some more project support within the supplier side, and we are now basically the critical issue that we've had for some time has been the portal. We have now got a plan in place basically to get the portal online, and the first route from the point of view of licensing that we're going to use is we're going to use it for temporary event notices, and then we're going to roll it out subject to that being successful. Communications, again, I think it's been a very busy time, and there's a whole range of tasks there that have been undertaken in terms of getting messages out, and I know some members do follow some of our social media and things like that, but you can see the range of stuff that goes out there to the public, and quite often is picked up by the media, but some of the more, it's interesting actually, we put very big stories out, and then some of the more kind of obscure stuff is the stuff that gets picked up. Certainly anything to do with animals or lost dogs or anything like that is very popular. So without going too much into the body of the report, I just wanted, Chair, if I could just invite George to see if he wishes to add anything around the community and trading standards areas, and then I'll just quickly whip through the rest of the report.
Thanks, Sean, Chair and councillors. Yes, the report you'll see within the Community and Trading Standards Service, we've amounted to around 2,000 service requests in this last quarter. The paper also covers some really important proactive projects. So to give an example, officers have delivered several presentations aimed at raising awareness in alcohol reduction, the dangers of vaping in young children, criminal exploitation and substance misuse. And those same officers have also been busy in the community promoting those key messages using local community hubs, local colleges and local radio. So from what the officers have done, data would suggest that some of the interventions around scams and call blockers has saved 85 victims, a cumulative total of around £43,000. And further work with our banks has increased this amount to around £110,000, and we're also rolling out some officer training regarding loan sharks. For those that are unaware, we also have a community larder in West Berkshire, and that continues to run on a weekly basis. And the number of users has increased, and it does continue to be a well-utilised resource in enabling our officers to provide face-to-face support over a number of the areas that the partnerships are involved in, just such as those I've just mentioned. We've also been involved in with successful bids, campaigns highlighting the dangers of unsafe purchasing and charging of e-bikes and e-scooters, working with colleagues in the fire service, and also conducted awareness campaigns regarding dangers of the babies and young children ingesting button batteries. So that's quite a lot of public health work that we've been getting on with. From the sort of programme business as usual side, we're also pleased to report that officers have continued to work on delivering our annual food inspection programme and sampling programme, and this is alongside the service requests. So pleased to note that all of our high risk food standards of inspections have been completed, as have our animal health, animal feed inspections. And the team are now working towards a new delivery model, which is in the process of being rolled out, and this has been set by the Food Standards Agency. There's also programme inspections such as petroleum safety, again, which all the officers have now completed the year's programme. Regarding other areas such as underage sales or product safety, officers have also been testing many products. These include vaping products, soft toys, and are destined for children's market, and underage sales of lottery tickets. But the one business sector that continues to be complained about is second-hand car dealers, and our officers are now looking to engage with the top 15 most complained about businesses to try and improve that picture within the industry. As for community officers, they've also been busy, and as Sean has alluded to, the resourcing is challenging. However, 3 of those officers have now completed their first year of professional environmental health training, which is really exciting. You also will have read that the officers have been involved in assisting with complaints, particularly around flooding within West Berkshire. And finally, we've completed a disease surveillance programme, which looked at mosquitoes and invasive mosquitoes in particular, and we're pleased to announce that there haven't been any invasive mosquitoes in the area, but there were some yellow fever mosquito eggs discovered along the M4 corridor, which has prompted us to continue this surveillance going into next year. Thank you.
Chair, if I can just pick up, then I'll quickly run through the rest of the report. Just looking at the commercial section that deals with food and health and safety, you'll see that we did manage to achieve all of the high risk inspections for category A, B and C food premises, 44% of D premises, and then the very lowest rated, only 15%. We still have got a number of overdue inspections. I mean, this just simply comes down to resourcing. Other areas that we need to prioritise, things like health and safety accidents and things like that over some of this inspection work. But we have developed the programme for this year, and we're hoping to make inroads as we get into this year's programme. Looking at licensing, the major piece of work that has been concluded really in the last 12 months from policy point of view is the adoption of the Bracknell taxi and private hire policy. We have consultations going forward on the gambling policies for both West Berkshire and Bracknell now, and you'll see basically there also in the report is a summary of hearings since the last meeting. We have seen an increase in hearings, but they're still at a manageable level. Moving on to housing, we have added the information that was asked previously about what proportion of the complaints that we get about service requests about housing that we get are relating to social landlords, and you can see that at table 14.1. Very quickly into environmental quality. The couple of things there really to highlight is that the new air quality action plan for Crowthorne was submitted and has been agreed by government, and that was confirmed basically on the 9th of May, and that in line with the decision of this committee previously, that the air quality management areas for Newbury, Thatcham and Bracknell Bagshot Road basically have now been revoked, so leaving us with one air quality management area across the 2 authorities, and that's the Crowthorne one. And finally, I think just to point you towards 16.5 of the report, which gives a list, basically a summary of cases since the last hearing. So these are criminal cases that have taken place since the last hearing. As you can see, there was a significant range there, covering everything from fraud to unfair trading, even basically a case relating to allergens and illegal vaping and even illegal storage of fireworks. So it's quite a case list, and perhaps again demonstrates the range of things that the service has been involved in. So I don't propose to go through every line of Appendix A. You'll see at Appendix B there are some complements. As we've been suggesting in the past, it's useful to circulate these to members. We've circulated some additional ones that relates to one of those cases, the last one on the list basically, which was a case relating to a green energy firm. And in Appendix C, you'll see the breakdown of the work that we do for individual authorities. But unless, I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Murphy. I'd like to go to Councillor Allen for the first question.
Thank you, Chair. Under 7.2, which is under the human resources bit, it says that there are currently 3 officers off on maternity leave, and we're looking at how these roles can be backfilled. I'm wondering why you wait until they go on leave before thinking, oh, we need to backfill this position. That's what it sounds like, the way it's written, given that you get quite a bit of notice generally when people are going on maternity leave. You'd have thought that, you know, unless they're roles that, you know, you can't train someone up in, that you would get a temp on board to cover that sort of area if necessary, rather than waiting until they're already on maternity leave.
Chair, that's a very fair point. I mean, what we're trying to do all the time, including with any vacancies that we've got, is to move resource around within the service. So in particular, one of the areas we've been looking at is how we deploy the trainees to give them the experience and everything else. So it could well be that basically into some of these roles we may deploy a resource from trainees and then basically use the money that is saved there basically to plough back into the service at some other critical points. Say, for example, at the moment we have got additional resourcing around licensing enforcement. We've also got additional resourcing around housing enforcement. So it is a bit of a, but at some point, I mean, somewhere in the system, the capacity loss that is caused by basically people being off long term will need to be picked up. But of course, the other side of that is, particularly with the use of agency staff, that there's a limit to how far the money will go, particularly with the premiums that are currently now being charged by agencies.
Chair,
Thank you.
I mean, just from personal experience, having daughters of working age who've had children, I don't think they don't have to give that much notice. I believe it's like 1 month or so beforehand. So it may be obvious, but obviously it's a very complicated place.
Yes, that is very true. Do you agree with that, Sean?
Well, I mean, what I can say is the good news. So one of them certainly is very, very recent. I mean, in fact, our colleague only had her baby at the end of last week, so it's very recent. But it is correct. There are also processes as well that we're having to go through at the moment with the financial constraints on the authorities, and I think that's fair to say that we do need to go through those processes as well. But at the moment, basically, there's no indication from the authorities that we can't use the money basically to backfill the posts, and that's what we fully intend to do one way or another.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. So just really want to compliment the team on the work which you've done. It's a really wide spectrum of consumer protection which you provide to the residents of West Berkshire and Bracknell. What I would also like to say is that with my non-executive directorship hat, Chartered Institute of Trading Standards each year have a Heroes Award evening in House of Commons, and it would be really nice to see an award for the PPP of this particular from your own team, Sean. So best endeavour, especially the work which you did on the green energy and seeing the testimonials. It would be really great to see if we can get the recognition to the team. It's a really great evening up at the House of Commons, and if it can happen, it'd be really good to, as I say, propose, see if we can get an award for the work which you're doing as a team.
Yeah, and I endorse that, Councillor Cottingham.
Chair, thank you very much for that, Councillor Cottingham. We'll certainly have a look at it. We're obviously very modest. Just to point out that that actually the Trading Standards Service is a 3 authority. service with colleagues from Wokingham who are on the call tonight. But I'll speak to, so we'll certainly have a look at that as an option. It is a phenomenal range of work, as you say, and it's very much in line with the model that is proposed at national level of prevention, intelligence and enforcement.
Thank you. I've got a question, Mr. Murphy. Section 6.6 on the FOIs that we receive. Now there's a massive uptake from the councillor/MP queries, and that's always a good thing. It's never a bad thing. But I just want to ask, is that draining our resources? And are we able to keep up with that? Have we got enough dedicated resources to those? Because although they are a line item and we just see them as a number, there is a lot of work that goes into those type of requests. And we do know they have also been used sometimes as indirect attacks on local councils when they receive a large amount of FOIs. So just wanted to make sure that we have enough dedicated resources to that and we're not spotting any trends there.
So Moira manages all of the FOIs for her sins, and I'm sure she would make an observation on that, Chairman. On relation to the member queries, what I would say is this: we've worked hard over the last number of years now, really, to raise profile of the service with members, and they realise, for all sorts of reasons. But one of those reasons is actually the information we get from members is very valuable. This is an intelligence-led service, and basically we can't operate without people coming to us, either directly or through basically elected members. So we're very pleased for the interactions that we get from members. Moira, I don't know whether you would want to add anything on FIs. I know that is a lot of work.
It is a significant amount of work. We do get a number of queries. I guess when it's the press queries, the students that aren't prepared to go and do their own research and things like that. But the problem is that if it's an FOI, we're required to answer it. So yeah, it is taking a lot of work. What we're trying to do to mitigate it is to kind of have a look at our website and see where we can put more information on the website. So basically your answer then is just a link to that particular item, rather than having somebody going through an entire list of zoos or dog breeding licenses or whatever. So there are other ways that you can look to cover that work off.
Thank you. I'd like to defer. Damien?
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to add to that as Sean has already talked about, we welcome member queries. I think one thing that we are looking to do is mobilise members in a more effective way. Sometimes we can have members step into the space where officers might traditionally work, but actually members have the relationships with residents on the ground. So, for example, we're looking at the moment at a project around registered social landlords and issues around housing, and we're looking at how members might be able to help us and support us in terms of some of our resource constraints, and actually meet with registered social landlords themselves on behalf of the tenants within particular blocks. So that's an area really where we would welcome more support from members, and obviously that supports our resources as well.
Thank you, Damien. I got a couple more, Mr. Murphy, if that's okay for you. The next one is ICT Section 8. We do know this has been ongoing from last year, and I do know the end is in sight and we can see light at the end of the tunnel. But again, with this, my biggest concern throughout this whole process was in 8.3, which is the data, and ensuring that we are able to preserve any legacy data and we don't lose any. And the system works with the old data. We know what systems are like, and just wanted to get some more reassurance on that point, Sean. So
one of the authority systems is already transferred, and we've done the work around legacy data. The system here at Bracknell basically still in a transition phase, and we have an ongoing dialogue basically with the ICT team and the programme team that are dealing with that to make sure that we have the data that we need going forward.
Thank you. Last question from me. Section 11. We've had a recent change to the law regarding e-scooters. Are we seeing a big change affecting us directly, or do we wait until our next meeting to raise this?
So, I mean, we've done quite a bit of work around it's an interesting point actually, because if you take something as simple and as narrow in a sense as one subject such as e-scooters, we've looked at this from a number of angles. So we've done work in the past about sales. We've done some joint visits with the police about the clarity of the road traffic stuff at the point at which these things are sold. I mean, obviously it doesn't necessarily stop people using them on the highway, but we've also basically done more recently some work around the issues associated with e-scooters and in fact anything that contains lithium batteries, and that is something that we've done a campaign with the fire service on. We've particularly looked at storage in things like HMOs and things like that. And then looking ahead, we've been asked to the government, by the government, and this comes on really when we get on to the next item about priorities. There are lots of these things coming up to look at issues around the repairs of them and the safety of those repairs. So, yeah, I mean, that's one area, but just 3 aspects.
Thank you, Sean. I think Damien's got to add to this as well.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just in reference to Bracknell itself, obviously we've just undertaken to have town centre ambassadors recruited, which will be a visible presence within the town centre. They're paid for from government funding, but we've had them now for a month, so early days, but we'll be monitoring to see what impact they have in terms of reducing antisocial behaviour, scooter and cycling in town.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay, yeah. Oh. Councillor Montgomery online.
Thank you, Chair. I just had a query about item 11.16 regarding petroleum inspections. My apologies if this information is available elsewhere, but there doesn't seem to be too much detail on how these inspections went.
Sorry, that would be one for George, who's in his area.
Yeah, hi, sorry, Councillor. Yeah, no, the inspections all went well. I'm not aware that there were any significant non-compliances, but I can check and then come back to you if that's okay. More detail, that is.
Thank you.
Thank you, George. Okay, moving on. If there's no further questions, we'll have a proposer and a seconder, and I'm happy to propose from the chair. Can I get a seconder, please?
I second the report.
Thank you, Councillor Cottingham. And now I'll hand over to the clerk to read out the recommendations.
Thank you, Chairman. So yes, the recommendations are as follows. So the committee is asked firstly to note the Q4 and year-end data for the service, which is in Appendix A. Further to note the update on service delivery. The committee is then asked to agree the 61.69k of revenue funding is carried forward into the 24-25 financial year. So that can, if members wish to vote by showing their hands, those in favour of that proposal? It's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Agenda item 11, Public Protection Partnership Strategic Assessment 2024 through to 2027. I would like to introduce Sean, or ask Sean to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. So again, if there's any detailed questions, my colleagues may be called on to assist if that's okay. So just to introduce this, I won't go into, it's 58 pages, a lot of detail there. I don't intend to go into all of the detail, but just to say something about the background to this. First of all, it was drafted in large part before the election was called. So therefore, some of the, I suppose, horizon scanning stuff, the talk of new legislation, basically, obviously, some of that fell away at the end of this Parliament. And I've no doubt some of it may well reappear in some form in the next Parliament. So, for example, examples would be the bill relating to tobacco and vaping is one of those that fell away. So the second thing is really about this is the idea of it is to set out all known demands on the service. So, and those demands are changing all of the time. You know, so if you look just over the space of the last few weeks, I talked earlier on about e-scooters, but we've also had we had announcements from the Home Office about basically the priority that we need to put around knives and sales of knives. And then more recently, in the last few weeks as well, we've also been asked to undertake a series of visits, reassurance visits. I think they're described as to undertakers and funeral parlours, and that follows basically the events up in the East Riding of Yorkshire. So we've basically scheduled those in. So there are new things coming online, I suppose, all of the time, on new priorities basically being placed on things all of the time. So a good example right now is you'll have seen the information around the recent outbreak of E. coli. So, you know, that's something, it doesn't affect us in our area, but it's something that we need to be aware of and as part of our horizon scanning. So what this document does is seek to break down the work that we do into what we call programme work. Business as usual, as it were, so carrying out inspections and things like that, and then into sort of priority areas or projects, I suppose, basically, is another way of putting that. It sets out, I think, hopefully clearly the breadth of responsibility of the service, and I think for many that are new to public protection, it's kind of, I mean, I was having a conversation with Damien about this earlier on, and Damien, we were talking about the new regulations relating to chipping of cats, microchipping of cats, and Damien said, who does that? And I said, well, it's us. So this is the kind of stuff that's coming up all of the time. So what we're seeking to do here basically is to say to members, look, there is all of this work out there, that there's all of this demand on the service out there. There is this resource, and as we know, this year we've had to take some decisions about resourcing and vacancies to balance the budget. And what we're hoping to do basically is to use this as the basis of a discussion around prioritisation going forward, and come back basically with some thoughts on prioritisation once we've gone away and consulted members and other interested parties. So just very, very quickly, the way it's set out is there are some cross-cutting priorities, climate change. These are the kind of things you would expect to see as authorities. And we've tried to tap into the authorities' own priorities, so improving health, safeguarding, protecting vulnerable people, climate change. And then we've got one or two which are quite local to us, like e-crime, because actually so much now of what we deal with, and it's not just about the sale of counterfeit goods or scams, but also it could be anything about basically waste-related, fly tipping-related crime and all sorts of stuff, basically, which tracks back to the use of the internet. And then there are a number, I suppose, really of what you would call vertical. So you've had some horizontal sort of priorities, and you've got these vertical priority areas, outcome areas. So building safer communities, that includes things like licensing age-restricted products, offensive weapons, doorstep crime. Improved living environment, private sector housing, nuisance HMOs, park homes, pests, animal warden, protecting consumers from fraud, and that includes scams, illegal money lending, proceeds of crime, fraud, unfair trading, etc. Reducing harm in young people, all sorts of stuff there, restricted sales, tobacco control, vaping, knives, etc. Protecting the environment, air quality, contaminated land, and so forth. protecting and informing consumers, and this is really about basically helping consumers to help themselves, but also includes some very focused areas around product safety, fraud, scams, and then the housing market. Animal welfare, so that includes on-farm and off-farm and licensable activities, safety in the workplace, and then the food chain, which effectively we regulate from plough to plate. So I think really that's all I want to say, Chair. I'm happy to answer any questions. I hope it does give a flavour for the breadth of work and some of the challenges that we're facing, and we do need to perhaps come back and look at how we balance that with the resourcing issues that all councils face.
Thank you very much. I'll start by opening and saying I'd like to thank the whole team in the amount of work put into this. Obviously, we can build it out by data we have, and we don't have a crystal ball, and we don't know what's on the horizon, and we have a very difficult task on balancing the priorities. And I think that's one of the things that we discussed that we are going to work on. And having said that, I'd like to ask, are there any members have any questions? Councillor Cottingham?
Thank you, Chair. So, Sean, just in relation to the intelligence, a lot of the work which you get are, no doubt, are tip-offs which we receive, but I'm also then thinking about typically someone who's causing consumer detriment, committing fraud, they're likely to also be committing tax fraud. A good example would be VAT. Do we have a way of tipping off HMRC from a VAT perspective where we believe there could be a potential for that particular organisation, person committing VAT fraud? Obviously, the powers from the VAT man are a lot more stronger than our powers. I think they have the strongest powers of any government agency. And typically, a fraudster, it's all about the money. Sometimes they think about they'll do their own business case of going to prison, but taking the money away from them will act as quite a big deterrent, especially the proceeds of crime, of recycling that money into the work which we do, of putting pressure. So my question is probably in two phases. Can we get more money into the work which we do from central government, and can we also tip off those agencies which central government who do have those powers to actually deter this happening in the first place?
Thank you. Thank you for the question, Councillor Cottingham. So, just picking up on the point of kind of investigations, and really, to me, it's about how things have changed over the years. I mean, the range of powers is now very broad that we have as investigators, particularly in the trading standards world. The issues of financial investigations have really opened up an awful lot, and quite often as a result of financial investigations we come across other associated crimes, let's put it that way, or potential crimes. And of course what this does really is it opens up some of these cases. So there was a time, if you go back not that far into the past, where effectively you may have identified perhaps a couple of victims of a doorstep crime type thing, or a fraudster. Nowadays, obviously, with the information that's available to us, with the databases that we have access to, CITE, and being able to obtain information from other databases and financial investigations, those investigations can develop very, very quickly. So, picking up on the resource point, that's one of the reasons, basically, why we have tended and successfully to draw down money from the National Trading Standards pot, as it were, basically to support cross-border investigations. And if you look at basically the case that was mentioned there, the recent one that we did in relation to green energy, that was basically funded in a sense that by grant funding. Obviously, we managed to recover the costs in that case and hand that money back to the government, but or to National Trading Standards. But you're right. So funding is really important, and I think given our successful record of around investigations and everything else, we're supported on a number of cases, both at regional and national level at the moment, which is really helpful. Just moving on to the second question about sharing of information. So if you take, for example, the one that you talked about, HMRC, we do have an information sharing protocol in place, as do other trading standard services. And the other big one now is, of course, is that we're all on the same, all the trading standard services and number of the police forces and other bodies are on the same intelligence database now as well. And you'll see actually from the report, I think actually, funny enough, in the strategic assessment, you can see how many intelligence, at some point, I think it goes into just how many intelligence submissions we've actually made as a service, and it's a significant number over the last 12 months.
Thank you, Sean. Any further questions? Okay. So we're going to need a proposer and a seconder, especially for the amendment and recommendations on page 69. So I will go ahead and propose, and I will look for a seconder, please.
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor. Now I'll pass over to Clerk.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, so thank you for the proposer and seconder. So the JPPC has asked to resolve that the updated strategic assessment forms the basis of the PPP priority setting for 24-25 through to January 2027. Members vote in favour of that proposal, please. Thank you very much. Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item 12, draft nuisance policy, and I would like to ask Suzanne McClellan to introduce the report, please.
Good evening, Chair, members. Hopefully you can hear me okay. So before you this evening is a draft policy document to deal with both reactive and proactive nuisance areas of work within the service. The purpose of the policy is to ensure that the service continues to carry out this area of environmental health work both consistently and provide a transparent approach to our residents and businesses. It is designed to improve their quality of life and resolve matters which are or could impact their health. Last financial year, the service received over 1,000 reactive nuisance complaints. This is a significant number. We also proactively deal with nuisance via planning applications and in the licensing regime, and also through the safety advisory group. We have a successful route to resolving some complaints, especially from domestic sources via our mediation service. Complaints that we receive that we don't have powers to deal with, we signpost onto the correct agency. We also offer guidance on our website and highlight issues through social media. In Appendix A of the report, you will see that the draft policy is to cover the period of 24 to 2027. The proposal, if the committee agree, is for us to go out to public consultation via the 2 councils' consultation hubs for 6 weeks. This will mean that we can then report back to the next committee in October with the findings, allowing for a discussion of the final policy for formal adoption. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. Anybody have any questions for Suzanne? Okay. In that case, I'll move to propose it and look for a seconder, please.
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor. I will now defer to the clerk.
Thank you again, Chairman. So yes, the committee is asked to approve the draft nuisance policy 24-27 as set out in the appendix for consultation. The service lead for public protection seeks to be authorised to proceed with a public consultation for the 6 weeks between the 8th of July through to the 19th of August this year. And finally, the committee has asked that any comments on the draft policy be brought to the October committee meeting for discussion prior to the policy being formally adopted. Can members show in favour of that proposal, please? Thank you very much. That's approved.
Thank you, Clerk. I'd like to note that all business has now been concluded, and I'd like to thank everyone for attending the meeting. The next meeting will take place on October the 7th, 2024 in the West Berkshire County Council offices.